Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and I a minute late this morning because the coffee was taking. I realized I was doing something, and I realized, oh my gosh, it's 6:29. I have to get online. So, and the coffee maker takes about 2 minutes, so I'm a couple minutes late. It's okay, we don't have anybody on yet, so that's good. Anyway, this morning It's Friday already. It's kind of crazy that we're already at the end of the week. Yesterday was summer solstice. For some reason I was thinking they were both today, but maybe, I don't know, maybe because I get mixed up in my mind. I tend to associate, rather than celebrating summer solstice per se, there's something that usually in other countries, well, maybe in the church calendar referred to as St. John's Day. And it's not that I'm looking at that saint aspect of it in particular, but St. John's Day has to do for me with, that was a day when I was in Ireland a couple of years ago, when I had a really profound connection experience to Macha, to the Morgan. And it was actually in a place called Awan Macha, which is a sacred hill that has her name. And of course, Macha in Irish is a sovereignty goddess. And she's considered to be a war goddess as well, but oftentimes war and sovereignty goddesses are pretty much the same. Because if you think about it, war is a kind of jockeying for territory, and or at least that's part of it. And so she is definitely this emblematic of this, and in particular with Ireland, she has to do with the sovereignty of the land, and the granting of kingship was definitely part of her role. And the idea of the goddess granting kingship actually is something you see through a lot of traditions, including the Judaic one initially. So, So in any case, I had a rather profound experience then, because that was when I ended up celebrating solstice. Was I went up to Awan Macha. When I was living in Ireland, I actually had two different. I wanted to go up there. I'd been up there once. I had two different trips. And Awan Macha is in Northern Ireland. It's near the town of Armagh, which is actually Ardmacha. It's actually Macha's Height or Macha's Hill. And it was originally sacred to her before St. Patrick came and took the area over. And there's a story in the biography of St. Patrick about that. But in any case, I won't diverge into that. I visited it a first time, and I'd taken the official tour with the Navan Fort is what they call it, the visitor center. And then, but the actual hill itself is interesting because we would take the tour, and then I remember the tour guide saying to us, okay, well, if you want to actually see the hill itself, you have to cross the street into territory owned by the British government, because obviously British government controls Northern Ireland. And they said we don't have any jurisdiction over the actual site. So it was kind of interesting. So I had gone over there, and once I understood how to get there and what the paths were and everything, and I didn't have to go to the visitor center, and you don't not only have to pay a fee to just visit the hill itself, because it's not really part of the visitor center. The visitor center, they kind of do a tour, and they do like this reenactment thing, and which is fine. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, the actors were all pretty good with that, but I ended up. So once I understood that, I actually went back, and I didn't realize I was going on St. John's Day, or Eve. That was they actually have bonfires and things in Ireland. And I went up to the hill, and I did my little ritual up on the hill, and with very surprising results. So I don't know. So anyway, so that's kind of a long way around of saying maybe that's why in my mind I thought, I didn't. I'm thinking of the solstice as somehow not being on the 20th. Usually it's somewhere between the 20th and the 22nd, but it came in at 4:50 yesterday afternoon, which I think I did talk about yesterday. And today is the Capricorn full moon. I was watching Crystal B's astrology. She's on here. I know Crystal B from when I used to work at the Rockbox Annex, which no longer exists. But it was a store where we did readings and Reiki therapy and all kinds of stuff like that. And Crystal was associated with the store, but she's also an astrologer in her own right and has her own business dealing with that. And she had said that there's going to be two Capricorn full moons. There's this one, and then there's the next one, and they both are in 1 degree of Capricorn. So, That's a mistake. The first one is in 1 degree of Capricorn. The second one's late. It's like 28, 29 degrees of Capricorn. So it's, yeah, so there's different effects from the fact that you have one that's very early and one that's very late. Now, Capricorn energy, as I've indicated, we're kind of getting out of a Capricornian space in terms of how we're dealing with life, dealing with work and stuff like that. And good morning, Melissa. I was just talking about the full moons that are coming, and the fact that this Capricorn that's going to be in the early degrees, like 1 degree Capricorn, and the next one's going to be late, like 28, 29 degrees Capricorn. I don't have the exact numbers, but one's at the beginning and one's at the end. And so the Capricorn moons, the one thing about them that's very good is that it kind of puts us in a space where we can get bring our ideas down to earth, where we can manifest things. Capricorn's very much, it's Saturn energy. I talked about this the other day, and it's kind of that worker bee kind of energy. You have this sense of being able to get organized and make plans and be persistent in the work that you do need to do. It's different from the kind of watery energy that you may have that is more that is more diffuse, where you may have a lot of dreams and ideas, but you can't actually trying to manifest them is another thing. Those are more of the realm of the visionary rather than somebody who is the practical person or the doer in that sense. So Capricorn energy is very much tied to, and it's also about the earth and it's about grounding. There's a lot of good things about Capricornian energy. The only problem with it, like a lot of the earth signs, is that you can get too stuck. You can get stuck. You can get slowed down. You can get you can be too cautious about moving sometimes with this kind of energy. Oh, good morning, Leela. And so that's the kind of energy we're moving into. And of course, it's the moon's energy. It's the moon in Capricorn. We have, the moon, of course, brings in that emotional element. So I think we may feel more driven to work towards whatever our dreams are, or our goals are, or whatever it is we feel emotionally invested in, or whatever the heart is invested in. So that's the energy we're moving into post-solstice. And as I was saying, I think before you guys joined, was that I have, this is, we're getting around to the time, and I don't remember if this is the exact date of it or not, but I tended to confuse the days of the solstice because I'm always thinking of St. John's Day, which is the day I had a really profound experience of Macha, who's one of my guardians that I work with when I was in Northern Ireland at Awan Macha. Good morning, Alex. So when I was on, I always tend to, rather than celebrate the solstice proper, I'm always celebrating what's thought of as St. John's Day. In Ireland, I know they have bonfires and things like that on that night. It's a tradition I just was not really aware of because I wasn't living there. And when I was living there, then I became very aware of some of this stuff. But, so I will probably be doing a later solstice celebration. As I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to be going up to Riverside Wellness Center today. Now, as I said, Karina has changed the name of it a bit to go talk about doing Rahani, which I'm actually doing tomorrow. That's my Rahani class. Actually starts at 6 a.m. I said, oh good, I have a little time to move my car because I have a driveway that's kind of like a single car driveway, so I can move my car so that my friend can pop by to let me practice on her which will be in like 3 hours in. But I'll be able to do the practice Rahani session on her. So that will be good, but I just wanted to, I thought, oh God, I'm gonna have to leave I have to go the night before because I really don't feel like walking down my street like at 4 a.m. moving my car. But 5 a.m., that's a little more respectable. Yes, very exciting, exactly. And speaking of exciting, okay, the topic that I kind of have for this morning, because I did ask about what, I always ask beforehand when I get more, get up, do my grounding rituals and so forth, about what topic we want to cover today. And one of the things I'm going to be doing today, the kind of, big news of today. I've got a lot of things going on, but I'm talking about the Azrael sessions, okay? And this is something that I'm releasing on my channel. And initially, because one of the things I talk about, if you go to my website, transitionlifecoaching.net, I talk about channeling Archangel Azrael. And I started working with Azrael I feel like it was late last year to be early this year is when it really became very prominent to me, probably around the death of my uncle. I felt like that energy was coming in, but Azrael also made himself known in several different ways and in capacities. And just as now one of the things I was explaining, I was on a podcast last night called Inside the Sacred Circle. There is a YouTube link. I'll probably put the YouTube link up on this channel and on the Katonia channel, so people, if they want to watch it. Ended up being a long one. It was like an hour and 37 minutes that we were talking, but it was good. The only problem was I was on StreamYard, and as soon as Chrome, whatever browser I'm using, can get overloaded very fast. So the fan's going, so I'm moving very slowly like this, and so it's really annoying. But vocally, I think you could hear me clearly, even though I looked like I was like those old Starsky and Hutch episodes, where they would, stop and freeze frame. That's what I kind of felt like. So that was kind of annoying. But other than that, I mean, the content was really very good, and so they were talking to me a lot about my practice, and so I had one of the things that had come up. One of the things I always talk about in terms of the kind of pagan practices that I have or my relationship to what I consider to be the divine. Is a lot of people who get involved in various forms of paganism or neo-paganism may consider themselves to be like priests or priestesses of a particular deity. Like they may have a devotion to a particular deity. Now, devotion's really not a feature of ancient religion. I mean, it is and it isn't. And oftentimes it's just more, you kind of have a tit-for-tat relationship. Like, hey, you do this for me, I do this for you. And that was more the way, because you were working with natural forces and these kind of numinous forces that I think people now, with, like I said, now that we're so head focused, we're not really so aware of them. But where the divine is, the idea that divine is immanent, it's here, it's not out there somewhere else, and it's around you all the time, and so you find a way to interact with it, just like you interact with people or animals or other beings here in the world. So that's how I tend to see these energies. But some of them, I've always worked kind of more with earth spirits. I'm a very earth person, and as you know, a lot of my work is about bringing things down to earth, not kind of being up in this like, oh, I'm going to transcend the world, and it's like, well, no, you're in the world, and the world, that's why I always talk about tantric practices. I said, and I don't emphasize the sexual. Sometimes I get criticized for that, but I don't emphasize the sexual aspect of it, because to me, it's not about sex. That's not the point. The point is that one is immersed in other words, that you can be a spiritual person, and you can be a quote unquote enlightened person, and still live in the world and be a normal person. That's really, to me, what that's about. So to me, when we start trying to escape from all that, it's just kind of like, look, you're here. This is where you are, and if you're going to look at it from a Western religious perspective, then you have to say, well, God made everything, and so everything is sacred. Even the things that maybe you think of as not being as pleasant or exciting or whatever, it's all part of what's here. So that's the way that I tend to look at it. And therefore I've tended to work with, that's what I said, I was just talking about my relationship to Macha, which was the sovereignty goddess of Ireland, and my encounters with her when I was in Ireland a couple of years ago, working on a book that's going to be coming out at the end of this year, called Phantom Queen, because that's what Morrigan, it usually either means Great Queen or Phantom Queen. But she's this idea of this, and again, there's the interpretations of her from the more Christian perspective, and then of course there's probably what we know about from the landscape. Usually, the landscape. We were talking about that last night too, about how landscape can teach you a lot about, give you more about the stories of a particular deity rather than necessarily the texts themselves. So. Okay, so the Azrael sessions. Okay, so Azrael was, again, every being that I work with, I consider myself like a vehicle. There's a term, and I know it's a voodoo term, and I don't practice voodoo, but there's a term called cheval. It's the French word for horse, and it's the idea that the person who is working with that particular divinity is like the vehicle for that divinity. So it's almost like they ride you like a horse, and that was kind of the way I felt about, I always talked about my relation to Macha as Macha at Ulster. It's like, in that story, she walks into the guys, she just literally comes running across from a field, she goes into her, she walks into this guy's house, Kruniak, she just walks into his house, because his wife has died, he has nobody to take care of the kids, and she just walks in and she just takes over and starts doing stuff. It's like, hi, I'm here now and I'm doing all this. And of course he manages to screw that up by not doing the things that she told him to do. But in any case, there's this idea of, yeah, they just kind of walk in and they're like, okay, I'm here now, and now I'm going to get things organized, and that's kind of the way I felt that relationship worked. And it was just like, you shut up over there, I'll do this over here, and they just kind of, so it's literally a relationship to these of them saying like, okay, I'm guiding you through this, you just trust me to do the thing I'm doing, and that's how it works. So Azrael became another being, and of course now this pulls me more into the angelic realm, because I've not really worked so much in the angelic realm. I mean, I'm aware of it, I have done like some workings in it probably a little more than 10 years ago, but that wasn't really my focus, because I said I tend to be more focused here, not focused on the celestial realm so much. Though Azrael is a type of angel that walks the earth. I mean, Azrael is considered to be the angel of death, and that immediately freaks people out, because they're like, oh, you're dealing with the angel of death. It's like, well, yeah, but he's not about, like, his appearance is not an appearance of, oh, when you hear this, when he appears that, you're gonna die now that he's here. I mean, yes, sometimes Azrael is the one who shows up when it's time for somebody to cross over, but he's not there to be scary. He's there to say like, hey, let me help you through this. Let's help you through this time that is this transition, which is very traumatic, of course, for a lot of people, because people because we hang on to life so hard. It's interesting. So it's more familiar than maybe the idea of the highly celestial angels. They seem so distant. Yeah, it's interesting. Angelic energy, the more that I start to work with it, I think I went to a conference actually a couple of years ago when I had been in England, and there was a guy called, good morning, JR. There's this guy called David Rankin who does a lot of books on angels and angel workings, more from a esoteric standpoint rather than, because you will have people who will do like angel readings and angel, have classes on angels and stuff that might be taking a slightly different perspective on that. And as I've said, there's two different ways to look at angels. I mean, we have the angels that you see, like I said, the Victorian Christmas card angels that are, that they're very sweet and they're kind of, they're very, they look very pious, and they may be, they look very benign and benevolent. And then you look at the biblical angels, and it's like, wow, they're like a mess of eyeballs and wings, and they look very scary. And so a lot of times when you showed like, yeah, here's a biblically accurate angel, and people go, that's terrifying. And I'm like, yeah, well, but they're just not, a lot of these kinds of beings, well, just like if you look at Hinduism, okay, if you look at the deities there, and they have like, 3 eyes and like dozens of arms, and it's because they're basically trying to say they're not like you, they're different from you. There's aspects of them that you can connect with, or images of them that you can connect with, and the image is always just an image. Somebody asked me that last night. They said, do you think that all of these faces of divinity are just masks? And I said, well, kind of, yeah, because the masks of divinity are, they're forms that help the mind, because I've talked about how limited our mind is in terms of interpreting the bigger picture. They're images that help us, connect with that energy and see it. And Azrael, it was kind of funny, because Azrael is an energy that everybody's terrified of, because they think, my first encounter with Azrael was a much more numinous one. He didn't have a real form. It was just more like an energy that I felt was trying to kind of almost like come towards me, and I was like, whoa, in the same way that if just somebody came running up to you on the street, you might be like, whoa, you might be startled. And my first impulse would have been to pull away, but then I went, no, I don't think that's really what I need to do here, because I work with transition life coaching, right? That's the name of my business. And therefore, it's not surprising that a being that is connected to transitions is going to be like, hey, let's work together. So that's really what's kind of going on here. And eventually, so initially, I had 3 dreams of Azrael. One which was very numinous, and I think I've gotten into the context of that dream before, so I'm not going to repeat myself. And then the second one, where he appeared more as an animal, it was kind of almost like a half dog, half boar, although he was conceived of as a boar. But it was funny. It was like this animal. They were like, this animal's on the loose, and everybody needs to be scared of it, like in the dream. And people were hiding and everything, and don't look at him, and so forth. And this came in the dream. This being comes up behind me, and he's like, I'm everywhere. Like this is silly. Like I'm everywhere. I mean, I actually did look at him. He looked a little more like a cartoon dog to me, and I don't think that's necessarily what he looks like. But it was like almost trying to say to me, like, yeah, it's like, and I remember there was a little white dog in the dream, and I wondered if it was going to savage this white dog, and of course it didn't. So Azrael's been kind of trying to like give me the imagery to kind of say like, yeah, okay, I'm here, but I'm here in this context of all this beautiful stuff, and why are you going to not enjoy all this life and all the beautiful things, and because you're just so worried about whether or not I'm going to sneak up on you. It's like that kind of a thing. So the third dream I had of him was actually more of a vision of him where I saw him more as kind of like a full angel with wings and everything, and golden eyes, so there's that image. But again, I think it's kind of like you keep changing kind of form just to kind of say like, okay, let's get comfortable here, so you can you're not in a form that is something that feels like you can connect with it, because they can take it, like a lot of spiritual beings, they can take a lot of different forms. So one of the things I had to start doing then was channeling, and that's what I'm going to be releasing today. It is on the Liminal Tarot channel. I will actually probably release a direct link to the playlist. And I was saying that I created an introductory video which is up, and all the other videos are up, but there's a fourth one that I'm going to be putting up. Now that's the one I want to talk about a little bit, because that's the most, they're all interesting. There's all things that are being said. And in the introductory video, I explain how this kind of information feels like it's coming through. I do a lot of them in black and white just because I feel like visually it's sometimes when there's changes in the environment and stuff, it's a little easier to see in black and white. So, I do kind of change them to that color, but I do actually show video, even though I feel like I'm not looking. You know how it is sometimes you're kind of like turned and not, like if you're laying down or something, like not in your best posture, and you're like, wow, I look really terrible there. But it's just, it just is what it is, because you're not in a space, not like now where I'm sitting up and talking to you and, all made up and everything. I'm just laying, there, and you're kind of very, very intent in trying to get that information. But the fourth video that I did was interesting, and initially it was going to be just a private channeling for myself, and that I was just going to go back and review. And I do need to put some explanation on it, because there was a point, I was basically laying in the bed behind me, and I was just kind of just saying what I felt he was saying, like coming into my head. And then at one point, it was like I was seeing some images in my head, and then I started to drift off. I started to fall asleep. And I only fell asleep for like maybe 4 or 5 minutes. It seemed like it was a lot longer than that. But then I remember I woke up, and I was just like, oh, get back in focus, get back into attention here. And so then I kind of say, is there anything else you want me to know? And then I was talking about whatever images I saw, and then he'll usually say something like, that's all, or that's all I have to say. And then I'll go and I'll turn the recording off. But there's a stretch at the end, like around within 25 to 26 minute mark, where I was basically asleep. And so I wasn't doing anything. My hands were moving in an odd way, which Jenny has told me. She goes, that's probably light language, because it can manifest through fingers. But there's this disembodied voice in my room. There's this disembodied breath, and then a voice that says what sounds like mad, and that's an Enochian word for 1,000. Okay. At first I thought maybe it was ma'at, but there's not an accent in there. It's just ma. And it's like, and I confirmed kind of afterwards, is that what you're saying? Are you saying 1,000? And he said, yeah, that is what I'm saying. And it's more of 1,000 seems to be more of a reference to a time frame, or a shift in time frame, or a shift in timeline. I'm not sure I fully understand what it's about yet, but because he's also said things to me like, I watch with 1,000 eyes. So you do have this, so I thought maybe it referred to that. And he said, well, not specifically, no. That when I did some reading, some follow-up, what I do is I have several different methods to follow up, and if one method tells me, okay, this is what Azrael's saying, I follow up with something else going, okay, I just want to check that method to make sure I'm not, that it's accurate. So yeah, and a lot of this stuff I'm kind of putting out there without commentary, but that's a piece that I think if people watch that piece, people are going to be like, whoa, because the voice that comes out there may sound a little scary to people, but I feel like it's trying to come across dimensions. And actually when I hear him talk, like in my throat talking, I hear the same kind of a voice. So it's just, it sounds almost a little, I don't know if gravelly is the right word, but for some people they might think it's a scary voice, but that's the voice I actually heard in my dreams too. And it's like, yeah, okay, I know it sounds a little scary. I'm not scary, you know? Yeah, so really interesting. And I've kind of been feeling like I don't want to overfixate on that point in the readings, but it did come up, and yeah. So I'll be putting the Azrael sessions up today, and if you get up to number 4, be interested to see what people think about that particular section, because I'm just asleep and I'm not. I mean, there's certain things you can hear in the background and stuff, but this is not that. This is most definitely not that, and it's not anything that I'm doing. I'm not moving really. I'm not like shifting around, moving my legs, making. This is definitely like a voice that comes through. So, and I kind of said, well, what was the why that and what the meaning, and he's just kind of saying, well, just in case you thought all this was in your head. It's kind of that kind of thing. Just in case you thought all this was in your head, it's not. So I feel like that was kind of the point of doing it, and maybe that's why, because probably some people will watch it and go, yeah, but how do you know this isn't just you making it up? I mean, there's always going to be that kind of a thing, you know? So, yeah, and so, because we do, I mean, telling you straight, and you know what, I'm glad you said that, Alex, because honestly, that's the way angels communicate. That's what I've been told about it by other people when I've taken, again, just if they're going to say something to you, they're going to tell you directly what they want to tell you. They don't necessarily kind of go off into all these flowery directions. It's like, what do you want to know? Okay, this is what it is. And it's just kind of the energy. And even if you're working with Archangel Michael, or you're working with Gabriel or Raphael, they're all like that. Because Azrael tends to work with Archangel Michael and Archangel Uriel. Those are the other two who tend to kind of be, they're not really communicating with me, but they're kind of there. Because again, there's this very strong, almost protective, like warrior kind of energy that's there in the two of them. And because I think we're going through a major transition, and because it's been creating so much upheaval, I think it's almost kind of like, okay, we got the big guns here, like, kind of protecting this endeavor, whatever it is, moving forward that they're working towards. But and again, my doing it does not make me like some kind of great or special person, because it doesn't. It's just that the kind of work that I do, and perhaps whatever is part of my own soul origin or purpose, seems to be connected with what they're doing, and so they're like, hey, it's time for you to do this thing with us. So this is why I've gone down this path, as odd as it might seem to some people, especially people who have known me. But I'm just, as another friend of mine said, she said, like, hey, if you're working, when the angels you just go with it. They generally know what they're doing. You don't need to question what they're doing. And so I don't. It's just like, okay, this is what you want to do. This is what I do. So anyway, I'll be posting, those will all be going live today. They're all mostly uploaded. I just got to edit that last one in terms of putting a kind of an introduction where I explain to people where the time signatures are and stuff at the beginning. And then I'm going to post it this morning. Also doing a podcast this morning. I'm doing a recording one for my other channel for next week. So yeah, busy day today. So let's see what our reading is for you guys today. What do we need to know here? Interesting. What keeps coming into my mind as I'm laying these cards out is also kind of saying, I feel also what happened during that session 4 was there was a timeline shift of some kind. And I didn't really think about that till afterward. But there was just certain things that made me feel, because then it was like kind of like I came out of it not really knowing like what day it was. I keep getting the days wrong, and it's almost like I feel like something has shifted in time a little bit. And I actually had kind of gotten the message earlier in the week that by Thursday, Friday, there's going to be a timeline shift. Like, it's going to be, like, I kept seeing the star for truth. There's going to be a truth. There's going to be a truth. There's going to be a truth. So I was like, okay. And I felt like that might be part of it, but I didn't know what that was going to look or feel like. And I thought, okay, that seems like that's what that was. Because also that sense of time. When I fell asleep for that period of time, I thought I was asleep for like a half an hour, and I was asleep for like maybe 3 minutes. So it was just kind of, yeah, interesting sense of time. Okay. So our central card for today is the Success card, 6 of Wands. Okay, so this is a card of of achievement, of accomplishment, of having done something, of having hit a milestone, or being looked to as a leader in some way. Time is very tricky. Yeah, it is, and especially when you're dealing with the celestial realm, and when you're dealing, well, actually, when you're dealing in any, when you really start really delving into any kind of spiritual space, time doesn't always necessarily work the same way. It's because time, the way that we conceive of it, is part of our other sense of order. It's a perception that we have, but even physics will tell you that that's not quite the way it works. You know, that's it's an illusion that we have about past, present, and future. But here we're all looking at a particular moment where we are successful, where we can feel proud, where we can feel like we've achieved something, or where we are looked to by other people or recognized by other people. Okay, so there's a sense of recognition here, but internally we have this split. We have this Two of Swords card, what they're calling the schizophrenia card, and so I think there's still this idea that there may be this split right now between the head and the heart, between recognizing that I think a lot of people are now starting to recognize that they're moving in a new direction. There's a need to move into the heart space, but the mind still likes to get in and try to, again, as I was saying yesterday, tries to take control of things, tries to kind of mess things up and kind of say, because it's in a way it's almost like an ordering principle. It's like, okay, no, you don't want to go off in this new direction, which might be chaotic. Let's just pull you back into this orderly space. But this is a case of like Chicks Stratton Kent used to say, he said, sometimes a little chaos is good for you. So it can be, I feel like there's more of this kind of needing to drop both. It's not so much that one has to fight the other, it's just that you just need to kind of let go. And the external feeling of which we're aware is the Knight of Wands. We have the intensity card. So there's a lot of intensity here. Certainly energetically, things have been very intense for a lot of people. I feel like this is a time when achievements are possible, or maybe we're able to finally recognize the things that we do or the things that we have accomplished, or maybe others recognize us for our work. But we still may feel very, very split about it. We still may, especially with this Capricorn new full moon energy that I was just talking about, we may be trying to be, realistic, practical, and grounded, which again is not a bad thing to be, but it may be to the point that we may let our mind get involved too much because we think that that's the way to do it. But there is a certain amount of kind of just following along with the flow of things. And right now, if things are very, very intense, sometimes that's the reason also people want to pull back, because they're like, whoa, this is a little too intense right now. I need to kind of, chill out a little bit. Okay, now interestingly, we have the Moon card here as the comment, which is the past lives card. Okay, and I was talking a little bit about the time shift, and I feel like this is almost like the past lives card. I feel like when these kind of things happen, I feel like we almost have an awareness of who we are across the spectrum. Because remember, I've talked about it not so much as past lives in terms of time, but as the idea that these are all existing at the same time. Like there's a multiplicity going on where several consciousnesses may be happening at the same time, and we just kind of are focused and return into one of them. So in a way, that almost indicates a timeline shift to me, because it's almost like, okay, you're shifting. There's like a shift of attention to something else, or there's something. Because I feel like there could be like parallel versions of you, and then there's also, with your soul origin, all of the other personalities that you've had, besides just say me as Brigid Burke, all the thousand possibilities of me as Brigid Burke versus who else I may have been, or maybe still am in some other universe. You know what I mean? So but when this card comes up, it's almost like, okay, there's a pattern that's now being revealed. There's something that needs to be released when this card comes up. And because it's moon energy, it's generally something, again, that doesn't come from the mind. It comes from that intuitive place. It comes from the heart, or even just from the soul, or from our intuition. We're in this space where we know it without having to evaluate it or having to understand it. We just know that there's something here. And then our outcome card is transformation. Okay, I'm talking about Azrael here. This is the card, the death card. And this is probably, I like this card because when I conceive of a lot of the death cards, they show the skeleton with the sickle and everything. this to me almost feels more like the energy of what I think of as the death card. You know, this is like this idea of the being that is transforming, or the being that helps you move through a transformation. So with this card here, I feel like it's just saying that, yeah, we're moving through this transformation. We're moving through this shift, probably away from this kind of energy. But this is all of this stuff that we're finally starting to see, you know, maybe to recognize that as well. And that may be part of the accomplishment, that maybe we're all starting to kind of recognize what the patterns are and what it is that we're hanging on to. And so in terms of what we're hanging on to now, and again, with this intensity of energy, which also can make us feel like time is going very, very fast sometimes. It can make us feel like, whoa, you know, slow down. I need to like figure this out. Like, you know, can we have a time out here? And so the intensity is, yeah, it's there. And so it's almost like we're kind of being called to say, okay, it's time to figure out what's going on here, and time to move past it, because it's time for transformation. It's time to do something new. And even I occasionally will watch other readers on YouTube and stuff. Like if something draws, a lot of times that's what people do. Something will draw their attention and say, yeah, I need to watch that reading. And I often feel like that's sometimes the sign with a general reading of what reading might be meant for you. But I was seeing the same kind of energy of like, hey, time to step into your power, time to be who you are. Like I was seeing a lot of emperor energy for people, you know, and that kind of coincides with the idea of leadership here. It's the idea of, okay, you know, you have the resources, you have the power. It's time to step into your power and not let all this stuff, who you were, or maybe the way you may still be experiencing or feeling who you were in a way that makes you split. That now this allows you to transform into who you are now and where you're going in a world that is shifting and changing. Because it's like anything, I mean, and it could, again, back to the Capricorn full moon, Capricorn is something that kind of makes us want to keep things where they are. And it's kind of like, okay, things are moving and shifting. And rather than react with fear and say, no, I have to hang on to the way it was. I have to keep, you know, and you know, again, this could be connected to past traumas, past life traumas. It could be connected to this life traumas. It could be connected to a lot of things where we have had certain things happen and we go, oh, no, if I go in this direction, if I do X, Y is going to happen. And Y may not be good. But it's kind of saying, no, we're in a different space now, and, you know, it's okay to do things differently. So I do hope that reading makes sense. And yeah, so interestingly, yeah, so definitely check out the Azrael sessions today, you know, when you have time. They're each of them are kind of long. They're all roughly 30 minutes each. So, I mean, obviously people take their time with it. But number 4, I mean, they're all interesting, actually. They all have, you know, Azrael says certain things, and if I can kind of give a summary of what he's said so far, it's almost like he thinks that we're just very odd as human beings simply because we are so obsessed with time. Thank you, as always, you're awesome. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Appreciate that. It's, yeah, that there's, that we tend to be obsessed with a thing, and they're like, well, why do you do that? Like, you know, you kind of, you know, you're always trying to, you always want change. Then you get change, and you're like, no, I don't want the change. You know, so they think we're just a little strange in that way. That's at least one of the messages that seem to come through. But yeah, I do have an introduction to that, and I do have those. And I'm just interested to share them with people to see, you know, what other people's impressions are of that and what's going on there. So, and yeah, and so tomorrow I won't be live because I'm going to be doing the Rouhani class. But then I will be back again on Sunday, and maybe I'll be able to have a nice update for you on that as well. So I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, and like I said, Northeast is still in the heat wave, although, like I said, the mornings haven't been as bad as I thought. So I just hope everybody's staying cool who's in that part, within this heat wave context. So so happy solstice, happy full moon again, and we'll see you next time. Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely, you're welcome. Take care. Thank you. You too.